You are now listening to Vibe Selection with Kyra, where you can get the real on today's hot topics.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Vibe Selection. This is your girl Kyra, and we are starting off the new year. We are in 2022, honey. We survived 2021. Let's see how we gonna survive this year. I'm very interested to see where this year takes us. I mean, we've been in this pandemic for about 2 years now, and it's even crazy to say that. It's crazy to think that we've been in a pandemic for like 2 years. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, we survived this year, honey. Unfortunately, our one and only Betty White, she passed on New Year's Eve. She was about to celebrate her 100th birthday, January 17th. And unfortunately, she passed away. But honey, she lived a long, wonderful life from what it looks like. She was one of my favorites on Golden Girls. She's been in countless movies, TV shows, series, freaking commercials, everything. This woman has done it all. So rest in peace to Miss Betty White, who was 99 years old when she had passed away. But let's get into today and what we got for the show today, honey. But let's start off with some vibe selection news. Let's see what's kind of going on in 2022, shall we? Well, for y'all that do not remember, maybe a lot of you probably do remember this, let's get into the vibe selection news involving the Boston bomber. Now, honey, the Boston bomber is refusing to pay his victims and their families restitution for the crimes that he committed during the Boston bombing. So for those of you who are not familiar with the story, Jahar Tsarnaev, who at the time of the bombing was 19 years old and is now 28 years old, was brought up on 30 charges and was sentenced to death in 2015. And he is being held currently in a maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado. After it was found that Jahar Tsarnaev and his brother, who actually died during a standoff with a police officer and ultimately, killed him. He died as well, his brother, in the whole melee. They went on like a little car chase or something like that, and there was like a whole standoff, and his brother ended up passing away due to the circumstances. They were responsible for the blast that killed 3 people and wounded 260 others. The incident took place April 15, 2013 in Boston, Massachusetts, and this was held during Boston's annual Boston Marathon that they held. Jahar was ordered to pay over $101 million in restitution and $3,000 in fees to the families of the victims involved in the Boston bombing. Jahar has yet to actually pay the victims and their families, and instead paid over $2,000 to family members for gifts and other miscellaneous expenses. He was also given money by random people from different parts of the U.S. And a motion was filed Wednesday by U.S. Attorney Nathaniel R. Mendel to have the court move the funds from Jahar's inmate trust account to pay off the victims and their families. And currently, Jahar has over $3,885 still remaining in his inmate trust account. And what's crazy is he was awarded the $1,400 worth of stimulus money, which they have not been able to figure out why he was even given stimulus money to begin with. I mean, I guess he was working in jail, and a lot of what over the $21,000 that he accumulated over the years of being in prison was from him working, behind bars. So I guess inmates nowadays, they got to pay the government, in taxes. And I guess because of that, as a result, they're able to get their hands on stimulus money. That's kind of crazy to me, but if you kind of think about it, if someone is working, the law technically says that someone is, they have the ability to get a tax return. So maybe that's part of the reason why Jahar was awarded $1,400 in stimulus money. But you know what? This whole situation is just really sad and disheartening. And Jahar needs to cough up the money that he's making because, you know, these families, they lost their family members. And there's a lot of people that were wounded, that lost limbs. And so many things, so many horrific things occurred during this Boston Marathon. And, you know, honestly, no amount of money in the world will bring back these people's family members and their loved ones. But they are rightfully due this money. And I really hope the families are able to receive the money. I mean, obviously, this guy isn't going to be able to cough up $101 million. Like, he never made that kind of money in his lifetime. But, you know, this was made as an example that, you know, when you do crimes, when you commit heinous crimes like this, you will be indebted to society for the rest of your life. And although he's been sentenced to the death penalty, I believe that's something that they're trying to overturn right now. So we'll see what's going to happen with this whole situation. Like I said, I really hope that the families of, you know, the victims' families really are able to get some type of compensation for what happened during the Boston Marathon. Because like I mentioned, it was horrific. It was a horrible day. So many people got injured, over 260 people, and 3 people lost their lives over something such a senseless act, you know, something so stupid. But for now, just keep the people who were wounded in this tragedy in your prayers and their families, because I mean, this is just such a tragedy. And, you know, it was just so senseless and stupid in the end. So, you know, I just prayers up to the families. But in COVID-19 news, coronavirus has a new friend in town, y'all. Yes, that is right. You know, coronavirus had got its homeboy, the Delta. Then we went from the Delta to the Omicron, aka the Omarion. Now we're in the IHU variant. I mean, this is crazy. This stuff just keeps mutating, and I'm sick of it. I just want coronavirus and its homeboys to just go bye-bye, just to perish forever, honey. I just want them to fall off the face of the earth already. But, I mean, it's been reported that a new COVID strain has been detected in France called the IHU. However, the WHO incident manager, Abdi Muhammad, has said it's been aware of the new strain since November, but they didn't see the variant as a concern since it hadn't spread enough. But the new strain was detected in France after a traveler came back from Cameroon and tested positive for COVID-19. Now, the IHU variant has mutated over 46 times, where the Omicron variant has mutated 37 times. And this new IHU variant has affected 24 kids in a school in October of last year, and has a N501Y and an N484, which gives the idea that the variant is able to evade vaccines, according to Dushwale in the Desert News. Now, at this point, I am tired, like I said, of coronavirus and its friends, honey. Now, the United States has the highest total of COVID-19 cases, coming in at 58 million, and has 475,000 new cases and over 855,000 deaths. Now, the place with the lowest amount of COVID cases is Tonga, coming in at 1 case with 0 new cases and 0 deaths. Worldwide, there has been over 300 million cases, over 2 million new cases, and over 5 million total deaths. Now, like I said, it's so crazy to think about, you know, that we've been in this pandemic for 2 years. And I know I said that in the beginning of the show, but it's just so crazy to think about, you know, what's going on right now. You know, there are a lot of people that are vaccinated. People are just starting to kind of get the boosters right now. I mean, it's even crazy to the point where if you're even trying to get tested to figure out whether or not you have coronavirus, you can't even get an appointment to even just simply get tested. Those Ready Rapid tests, they're not as accurate. It seems like they're kind of like 50-50, because I've known people that have taken the Ready Rapid test one day and it'll say, you know, it's negative, and then maybe like 20 or 30 or maybe a couple of hours later, they'll test again and it says that it's positive. And then they'll test again the next maybe 2 days, and then the test is telling them that they're negative. So it's just really, really weird on how those Ready Rapid tests kind of work. There's been pretty much a shortage of of those ready rapid tests in the United States, especially because, it's such high demand. People for the holidays have gone to travel to see their families. And, one thing that we all have to keep in mind is like the whole social distancing thing. A lot of people think that because they're vaccinated, that makes them less immune to actually catching COVID. But you have to remember, the part of the whole social distancing was also so you don't contract COVID, because it's highly contagious and because COVID itself is an airborne disease. So now I've noticed when I'm going into grocery stores, people are all up on me, all up on my back, and they just think because they're vaccinated, they don't have to keep their distance anymore. They don't have those little squares down when you go into the grocery store in the aisles of which aisle you're supposed to go down and which aisle you're supposed to exit from. A lot of the stores aren't properly wiping down baskets, and they're not really taking the precautions that they were before in the beginning when COVID first hit. There's a lot of people that are becoming extremely lax right now. I know that in certain parts of the U.S., especially in the Bay Area here, like San Francisco, there's a lot of places where you have to show proof of your vaccinations and stuff like that in order to get in. However, it's crazy to think that, in San Francisco right now and a lot of parts of the Bay Area and California as a whole, there's been a rise in cases right now. And that's because there's also so many people just going out and they're compacted in one space. Like, think about how if you go to restaurants, they're allowing a lot of people to come into the restaurant at once. Although they are showing proof of vaccinations, they're not limiting the amount of people that they allow into these spaces at a particular point in time. Same thing for the malls. During the holidays, people are going to the malls. They're going into the grocery stores and stuff like that. So there's so many people going into the stores to buy things because it's the holiday season where more people are contracting COVID. And then you're going with your families and there's like 10, 15 of you guys in one small tight space. And a lot of people aren't even quarantining before. And it's kind of hard too, because let's say, you have a family member that lives outside of the U.S. or somewhere, another state in the United States, and you're traveling to go over there to visit them. Well, you may have been quarantining in your house 2 weeks prior to that, but once you step on that plane, once you get into the airport, you are more susceptible to catching COVID. So it's just so much going on with this coronavirus thing. So the best thing that I can tell all y'all is to stay your ass in the house and make sure you social distance. That's the best thing I can do. Order all your shit online. There's a lot of people also trying to go into the stores because, the delivery for like Amazon for all the gifts and stuff like that was going to be really backed up last year. The whole postal service wasn't even able to deliver a lot of the gifts and stuff until well over into January and February. They were super backed up and delayed. So, that was, and then they didn't even have enough postal workers to be delivering all these packages too. So it's a lot going on, y'all. But y'all stay safe and stay healthy out there as much as you can. But on to our next topic at hand. Let's get into the vibe selection playlist, shall we? Now, let's get into this duo, this R&B hip-hop contemporary duo called Children of Zeus. So for those who are not familiar with Children of Zeus, they have been around since 2016. They're an R&B hip-hop contemporary group made up of two guys by the name of Connie Khan and Tyler Daly, hailing out of Manchester. They make a perfect duo mixing R&B and rap. And I recently actually found their music on Apple Music playlist after listening to one of their singles called I Need You, and I've been honestly hooked ever since. I then took a listen to their two albums, one of them entitled Travel Light and Balance, which is their latest two EPs. And honestly, I didn't skip not one song, which is honestly very rare in music nowadays. Like, when you listen to music nowadays, you may listen to one or two songs on the album and then it's pretty much a wrap. Because music nowadays is trash. It's very gimmicky. Music prior to this millennial age, you had music that was being made that was timeless. And nowadays you have music that won't last you no longer than a couple of months, which is really sad because music should be something that you're able to listen to over and over and over again. It should be something that's timeless. And that's part of the reason why, music prior to now, like a lot of the new age artists, rappers, singers, pop artists, they're taking samples from a lot of the older music, and using it in today's music and trying to remake it. Now, honestly, it does not sound as good as, the original music nowadays. But, that kind of tells you something. Like, they're using those songs because they're so timeless. And they still, will get you going in the club. They make you dance, make you want to shake your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, they make you want to they make you feel good. And that's what music should be about. Having a good time, enjoying yourself. So y'all go ahead and y'all check out Children of Zeus. Listen to their music, honey. Buy the album. Go out and please, please, please support these two guys because they honestly are what's missing from music. They are definitely bringing back what it means to be a R&B and hip hop contemporary group, and they are doing it oh so well. So yeah, y'all go ahead and check them out. Now, on to the topic at hand. Should 40-hour work weeks be mandatory? Now, the need for, let's do a little bit of a background history into how the 8-hour work week originally came about. Now, the need for an 8-hour work days was first thought of by Robert Owen, who was a labor rights activist in the 1800s. And in 1926, that idea was put into effect by Henry Ford, the creator of Ford Motors. For those of you who are not familiar with him, he is the creator of Ford Motors. Now, prior to the 8-hour work days, the average person used to work over 100 hours a week, and it honestly wasn't uncommon for them to work up to 16-hour shifts 7 days a week. And then in 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act made employers pay overtime to employees that worked over 44 hours. And in 1940, the 40-hour work week officially became law. In my personal opinion, I feel like the 40-hour work week needs to be abolished. And I'm going to get into some reasons why I personally feel like, the 40-hour work week, it should be abolished. Now, I personally feel like working 40 hours, affects your work-life balance. It's hard when you're working 8-hour shifts to be able to do all of the things that you may have to do for that day, whether it's, waking up to get your kids prepared to go to school, whether it's after you get off of work, being able to have the energy in order to help your kids with their homework or run your errands or, do something for your own self after work. Because let's face it, a lot of times you don't even have the energy to do anything, especially depending on the line of work that you do. Like if you're somebody that works in a hospital, most of the time you're dedicated, your whole life is pretty much dedicated to your job, especially because a lot of doctors and nurses have to be on call. So they're essentially working over 8 hours, the mandatory standard in the United States of how much somebody should be able to work. And then we also have to keep in consideration that, there is well over 80% of the population that has to work even outside of their 8-hour shift. Once they leave the job, a lot of times people still have to check their emails or do other things for their jobs, even when they're off the clock, quote unquote. And then we have to think about how most employers nowadays try to get you into being on salary. And so essentially, if you're a salary worker, typically, the standard is you working 8-hour shifts. However, they can work you as much as they want to work you. And although depending on the state that you live in, they're going to pay you overtime if you go over those 8 hours. However, it's still hard for you to be able to balance, have a healthy work-life balance. If you're working over 8 hours and then being on salary as well, you're someone that has to be on call. So, it's something that I feel like really needs to be taken into consideration. And really, we need to start figuring out what we can do better so that we can have a proper work-life balance within the workforce. Because, we're not put on this earth to be slaves to society. we are put on this earth to find out what our true purpose and our goals and our life path is for ourselves, not doing what society tells you that you need to be doing. Because let's face it, you can go to college and graduate and you can be out of a job even when you graduate from college. So then essentially you're stuck in debt. You have to find some means of making an income for yourself to be able to pay your bills and pay off your student loan debt. And so a lot of times people are forced into having to work, 8-hour shifts and working jobs that require working 8 hours a day. And the biggest problem with this whole 40-hour work week is a lot of times it also does not pay good enough. Like, for example, living out here in the Bay Area, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. However, you really need $25 an hour minimum in order to survive or, get by out here in the Bay Area, because the cost of living is just so expensive. So when you're going to college, it's hard to find a balance between going to school, taking all the classes you need, which most of the time you're taking 4 or 5 classes. You can be at school from 8 to 2 or 8 to 3, or sometimes you can be in school all day, depending on, what you're going to school for. And so how are you going to be able to balance going to school, studying, and working an 8-hour shift? So then essentially, if you're going to school in the morning time, you're going to have to find a job where you can work in the evening. Now, even if you're working in the evening, you're probably going to have to work a lot because you need to pay all your other bills and all your other, expenses for college. So essentially, you're going to have to find a job where you're able to balance the two worlds. And that's why so many people that are in college become waiters, because typically you're only working 4 to 5 hours maximum. I know I will say that me working 4 to 5 hours, I've been working in restaurants pretty much my whole life since I was 16 years old. And it was honestly the only way I was able to get through high school and college, because I was able to have enough time to be able to go to school. And then in the evening, I was able to go to work, and I didn't have to work such long hours. So it didn't affect my ability to study for exams. And I was still able to get enough sleep. And plus, the biggest incentive was I was able to pay my bills, pay tuition, pay for books, pay for supplies, pay for gas for me to be able to get to school. But we have to realize that not everybody is able to work and go to school. And so essentially that puts you in more debt because you're living off of student loans that you're going to have to pay back in the long run. And then not everybody is great at being a waiter or a waitress or a bartender or a busser or any of those things, or just working in restaurants in general. For some people, it's hard for them to, balance that and be able to multitask. So they're essentially not cut out to be waiters and waitresses. Some people also don't want to be doing all the hustle and bustle that being a waiter and a waitress entails, or a bartender entails. So they want to work in an office because they're able to be stationary. And, they're the only other jobs that allow you to do that, especially when you're going through college, is like some admin job, an administrative assistant work, a personal assistant, being a nanny or something like that to be able to get by. But those jobs only pay so much money. So it can be really hard to be able to get to where you want to be career-wise, because you have to think about the jobs that you're able to work until you're able to get to that point in your career. It takes steps in order to do that. And then sometimes once you're in your career doesn't always pay a lot of money either. And then how I was mentioning about the cost of living in the Bay Area, most people have to work 2 and 3 jobs. It's not easy because the average cost to rent out here in the Bay Area for a 1-bedroom or even a studio is about $1,800 upwards. Plus you have to make 3 times that amount in order to have a place of your own. And let's face it, in society, a lot of people do have kids. And, you have to take that into consideration too, that people have to pay, childcare ain't cheap. The clothes on these kids' backs ain't cheap. Now we live in a technology age where all these 1-year-olds have iPads and stuff like that, where it used to be, a kid was playing with a Barbie or something like that. The times have changed. It's very different. So the cost of living is just so much higher nowadays, but they're not trying to raise the minimum wage and they're trying to overwork people. So if you're working 2 jobs that require you to work 8 hours per job, plus you're trying to raise your kids, and then you're trying to have a family life, trying to do the husband and wife thing, or the boyfriend and girlfriend thing, or the girlfriend and girlfriend thing, or the boyfriend and boyfriend thing, and then being able to have time for yourself, being able to take vacations, or being able to have time off for yourself, it becomes impossible to be able to do that because you're trying to work through life. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to work these jobs that don't want to pay a lot of money. And then we have to consider how a lot of people, in order for them to be able to have houses for themselves so they don't have to pay the high cost of rent, they have to, especially in the Bay Area, a lot of people have to commute from Sacramento, from Stockton to Modesto. And a lot of these places are little hick towns. There's not a whole lot of job opportunity in these particular areas. So people are having to commute from over there into Silicon Valley. And that's a lot too. And the drive from these places is anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. So then we have to take in consideration that, most jobs, they start at anywhere from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. But now, because you're commuting from 2 hours away from where your actual job is, you have to get up earlier and prepare yourself earlier in the morning to be able to get to work on time. Plus, you have to get through all of that traffic. So essentially, there's a lot of people that have to wake up at 4 a.m. to be at work at, 8 a.m. so that they can get through traffic and get to work on time. Then that causes a ripple effect where you're not able to get the proper amount of rest. And let me break down for you what are the effects of, not getting enough sleep. So not getting enough rest can cause accidents on the road, heart disease. It can cause stroke. It can cause diabetes, high blood pressure. It ultimately ages you because you're not getting enough rest and you're not treating your body well. Your sex drive can even go down. And I know how a lot of y'all like to stick it to everybody named Mama Honey, and y'all spreading your seed amongst every woman or man or whatever thing that you come across. So I know for a lot of people, sex is very important. So if you guys are overworking yourselves, honey, your sex drive is going to go down a lot. You also can have major weight gain. It causes insomnia in a lot of people. A lack of concentration because you're overworking yourself so much. You're not able to focus on what it is that you're trying to do. And then ultimately it can lead to death. If you're not taking care of yourself and your body and you're overworking yourself, it's going to cause a lot of problems internally and physically within your body. And that can lead to, you potentially dying from a stroke or dying from, diabetes or heart disease. I mean, there's so many things that can happen and go wrong with you overworking yourself. There were some stats that were done about the effects of working more than 8 hours. Now, according to Gallup, 50% of Americans work more than 8-hour shifts. And in 2004, according to the CDC's Department of Health and Services, it provided 52 psychological studies and the effects of working overtime and even regular shifts. And they found it that people are more likely to fall ill, gain weight, and become injured and less alert after their 8th hour on a particular shift. And they're less likely to be productive after their 8th hour on a shift. So when you're done with your 8th hour on a shift, and let's say you're doing your 8th hour after you've gotten off and you're in the comforts of your own home, and you're checking your emails or you're doing whatever you need to do in order to work the particular job you're working, you're not going to be really as alert doing it because you're already over that 8th hour, And so working 8 hours shows that it's enough for the average person to be working. However, there's a lot of effects that can happen from being overworked and working 8 hours because the day drags on. Now, for a lot of people also, some people are just, more productive during the morning time. Some people are more productive in the afternoon. Some people are productive in the evening. In the morning, I can personally say my brain isn't as active in the morning time. I know that's what they say, that your brain is supposed to be active in the morning time, especially when you're having a hearty breakfast. But my mind, regardless of that, I'm still shut down psychologically, mentally, physically, everything. My whole mind is completely shut off. I'm just trying to, wire back up to become more alert, in the morning time, because you're trying to get your body back into the motion of things, back into the rhythm of things, back into the cycle. And that takes time for certain people. So it may be more alert at 8 a.m. in the morning. There's other people who are more alert around 12 noon. There's some people that are more alert at 5 p.m. after they're able to get a good workout in, get a good meal in their system, be able to, just sit back and kick back until their brain is able to become fully functional again. Everybody works different. And so I feel like when it comes to jobs, people should be able to have the choice to choose whether or not, they should work 8 hours or not. I feel like should be able to choose their own schedule, and the schedule should be convenient to the person as well. Of course, the jobs that you're working are going to have their set schedules of the times that they're open, but jobs should be able to allow you to have a healthy work-life balance. It shouldn't even be thought of, going on a vacation as some sort of luxury. That should be an essential part of life. That's not something that you should continuously have to compromise, because let's face it, we all have something going on outside of our jobs. We have life to deal with. You may be taking care of a sick family member. You may be taking care of a friend. You may be taking care of a family member's kids. You know what I'm saying? You may be just trying to take care of yourself. Maybe it's a chronic illness that you have, and depending on the line of work that you're doing, working 8 hours may just exasperate you, and you may end up in the hospital as a result of it. And the whole reason why there was an 8 hours that was put into effect and made a law was because it was for factory workers who were being overworked, who were working over 100 hours 7 days a week and being like indentured servants. And so essentially we don't live in those times anymore. So these 8-hour shifts need to be cut back to at least 6 or 5-hour shifts, depending on the line of work that you're doing, so that you can have a healthy work-life balance. And so these jobs need to create a schedule where they're cohesive with the times that we're currently living in right now. Society puts so much expectations on its people, and if you're not living up to those expectations, you're deemed as being a failure. But not everybody has the same ambitions and goals. Not everybody is able to afford to be able to go to college. Not everybody wants to work as a admin, working behind a desk for 8 hours a day. Not everybody wants to become a doctor or a lawyer. Everybody's, ideals of what they want to be in life and their goals and aspirations are different depending on the person. And it should be up to the person to choose how they want to go about executing that. We have to think about how in this pandemic, there's been 4.2 million people that have started their own businesses. And that's because so many people have had time to themselves to be able to wake up and realize that, I'm tired of societal structure. I'm tired of how society constantly overworks me and underpays me. And let's face it, you can make $55,000 a year and still be struggling. You can make $200,000 a year and still be struggling. At least in the Bay Area, you can still be struggling, and you're going to be paying a lot of money on taxes for that. But people are waking up and realizing, if I start my own business, if I go and follow my dreams of being an entrepreneur, then I'll be able to have that healthy work-life balance. I'll be able to run my errands in the morning. I'll be able to wake up at 10 a.m. if that's what I feel like doing, and being able to work as many hours as I want to work. And when I get tired, I'll be able to take a break and take a nap and then come back to work if I decide I want to do that and work some more. I'm able to, if I work for myself, be able to take my kids to school, and then when they get out of school, do homework for that with them. And then if there's, a game that they have after they do all of their homework, I can be able to take my kids to their game. I can still be an active parent within my children's lives. And I feel like like when you're as adults, especially when you're working, you have to sacrifice a lot. We're not able to spend time with our friends, our families, and all of our loved ones because we're so indebted to society. We have to constantly work, and we work so much, and we don't have time for ourselves. And during the pandemic, so many people have been able to wake up and realize, like, this is not the life that I want to live anymore. I'm tired of this. Let me start my own business. Because let's face it, the money from unemployment, it really wasn't that good of money. Essentially, you're only able to get $1,800 max. So there's a lot of people who are struggling during the pandemic. There's a lot of business owners that lost their businesses because they didn't have any money coming in for rent for that particular month. There was a lot of people who lost their homes. There's a lot of people that lost their, places that they were renting out. People couldn't pay their bills. People were destitute. You know what I'm saying? There was so much going on, and the government was little help. They didn't want to give any handouts to anybody. Heck, they tried to abolish EDD before, the whole pandemic. They were already trying to get rid of unemployment. They didn't want people to be able to collect. But in the times that we're in right now, this is the only source of income that people are able to live off of right now because so many people lost their jobs. A lot of people didn't have the ability to have a savings prior to the pandemic because the cost of living has been so high and the minimum wage has continued to be so low where you can't even live off of the minimum wage, which is insane. The minimum wage should be a wage where you're able to live off of. You know what I'm saying? So, it never really made sense. Although they did raise it up to 15, what good is that going to do? Like, I said before, in the Bay Area, a studio could cost you $1,800 upwards, and you got to make 3 times that amount of money. So essentially there's a lot of things that need to change within our societal structure to be able to have a proper work-life balance. And we really need to take a look at ourselves too, to realize what we can do for ourselves in order to make that happen. If society isn't going to do it for you, make it happen for yourselves. That's why there's 4.2 million people right now that had started their dreams during the pandemic because they got tired and said, you know what? Screw this. I'm no longer going to allow society to dictate what I should be doing for myself. I'm no longer going to allow society to have me in a bind where I lose my job due to its negligence. I'm not going to have that happen anymore because I have a family to feed. I have to take care of myself. So in order to do that, me being my own boss, setting my own rules is going to allow me to be able to stay financially afloat and keep me financially independent. And that's what I feel like everybody should be. Everybody should have their own financial independence. Everybody should be able to have a savings. Everybody should be able to live a wonderful life. But unfortunately, we live in a society where it's all about itself. We are born into a world where, we have to be indebted to the man, Uncle Tom, Uncle Sam, however you want to say him. We are indebted to the higher ups of our societal structure. And we really just need to wake up and realize, you know what? We can do this. We can make it happen. Now, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, no, the money isn't always going to happen right away, but there's other means of being able to supplement your income until you're able to get your business off the ground and being able to make a profit off of your business. But it's going to take sacrifice. But that's what life is about sometimes, making sacrifices. And if those sacrifices is to put you in the right direction of where you need to be in your life path, why not do that? You know what I'm saying? What's the harm in doing that? Following your dreams. You've been living in this societal structure for so long. Why not try something new? Don't allow fear to stall you from being where you need to be in life. Take that leap of faith and go after it. I took that leap of faith during the pandemic and I started this podcast. I didn't know what I was going to do and how I was going to get it off the ground and running before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity. What do I have to lose at this point? I've already lost my job. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where I'm going to lay my head in the next couple of months. So I might as well, get this podcast going and try to follow my dreams of what I always wanted to pursue for myself. myself, now that I officially have the time and I have the equipment to do so, I did it. I made it happen. And for all of you that are listening, you can do it too. You know, just take that leap of faith. God will bring you into the right directions. Call on your spirit guides. They're there to assist you. They'll always help you. You know, that's why I always say, don't knock it until you try it. You'll never know where the universe is going to take you. The universe will always take you down the right path. It may be a little bit of a rocky road getting to where, you know, you're supposed to be in life. But just know that if you keep the faith, if you believe in yourself, if you really just take a step back for a moment and have temperance. That means have patience, because the one thing that I struggle with, honestly, is patience. I don't have a lot of patience. I always want things right then and there, but ultimately it's not up to me and it's not within my control of when things happen. It will ultimately happen for you when you're ready. Because sometimes you may want something in that moment, but not realize how you're not ready to be there in that particular position you may want to be in. Or you may want to have a relationship and you've been dating so much where you're just so tired of it and you're just ready to find that one person who you're able to settle down with. But you may not realize that it's not the time for you to, you know, meet anybody. There may be things that you need to be working on before you can get into a relationship with someone. So, you know, just have patience. Be kind to yourself, which is the hardest thing for a lot of people to do, and take control over your life. Take back that control over your life. Don't let society dictate to you what you should be doing. You know, you are the one that sets the tone for where you should be in life, what career path that you should want to take, how many hours that you want to work. You're the one that determines how you're going to be able to have a healthy work-life balance, and know that you can have all of that, and you will have all of that. You just got to stay persistent in it. And on that note, I want to thank you all so much for joining me again for another episode of Vibe Selection. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram at I am Kyra Mahoney. If you like this podcast, please support it by donating to www.patreon.com/vibeselection. And if you sign up for one of those tiers there, you can tell me the type of content that you would like to hear on the Vibe Selection podcast. And if you choose tier 2, you'll be able to get some Vibe Selection merch, as well as dictating the type of content that you like to hear on the Vibe Selection podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It is free, honey. It don't cost a thing. And if you like to buy any Vibe Selection merch, you can do that at www.teespring.com/vibeselection. Once again, I am your host, Kyra. Stay safe, stay healthy out there. Love you.
Thank you for joining Vibe Selection with Kyra. Come vibe out with us again next time and hear the latest on today's hot topics. Find us on Instagram at I am Kyra Mahoney, or donate at www.patreon.com/vibeselection.